the Martin family. They're the founders of the Great Black and White Museum. That's Dr. Alma Martin and Dr. Joanne Martin. They were the founders for this foundation right here, the foundation we're standing on today. So now we can start the tour for today, for this exhibit today. For starters, I'm going to start with the father of Black History Month, which is Carter G. Wilson. He graduated high school at 22 years old. He got a bachelor's degree, he got a master's degree. He also got a PhD in philosophy. He also went on to teach. He was a principal, he was a supervisor, he taught English, Spanish. He also taught different cultures, which is the Philippines. He taught a lot of different stuff. He tried to make a difference in life, which he did, because as you can see, everybody is equal. This is Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, the Great Black Sage. He was a founder of the NAACP, which started the Niagara Movement. First started as the Niagara Movement, and then he went to New York City and became the NAACP. This is again Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. Behind you guys is the military genius, which is Hannibal. He fought 32,000 against 80,000 in Calvary. He won with his strategies. And to this day, they still use a lot of his strategies to fight in like Iraq and the Navy and stuff like that. I know it's kind of impressive, but it's a lot of stuff that they hold on to. The stuff that happened in the past, they felt like it could be used in the future, which is a good thing because it has helped. It has become a big help. And to go on to Bessie Coleman, she was the first black woman to become a pilot, because you cannot be a pilot in those times in the United States, but she had to go elsewhere in order for her to accomplish her dreams and what she really wanted to do. So she became the first black woman to ever become a pilot. She also traveled from state to state, flying around before she passed away, which she passed away in a flying accident in the air. And again, I would like for y'all to thank Dr. Alma and Joanne Martin for making this possible today, for you guys to have a tour at the National Great Black and White Museum. And I have co-workers back there as well that will tour you guys from here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and I want to start off by saying welcome to the National Great Black and White Museum. My name is Donald Meredith, and I'll be your tour guide for this section of the museum. If you look over it this way, you have a bale of cotton, and these are what the slaves were required to pick every day. So slaves did physical labor, and when they were doing their labor, they would pick stuff like cotton, tobacco, and sugarcane. This specifically right here is 500 pounds, and these are what grown men were required to pick. Women were required to pick 250 pounds, and adolescents between the age of 8 and 12 were required to pick 125 pounds, which is a quarter of 500. If you look over here, we have an act known as forced feeding, and a lot of slaves, they were doing hunger strikes, and they would starve themselves to death because they'd rather die than do the harsh physical labor of slavery. So what the slave owners would do is they would break their front two teeth in, and they would mix cornmeal with water to create mush, and they would force it down your throat. If this didn't get to you, they would move on to some punishments. This right here, we have the iron collar. This collar right here has spikes inside of it, so when you would turn your neck, it would kind of cut your flesh a bit. And this torso part right here also had spikes inside of it, so when you were moving, you had to be very careful. Here right here, you can see the bells. These bells kind of serve two purposes. One purpose was to let slave owners know where you were, and one big part of slavery, it wasn't just the physical labor that they were doing, it was about the mental and mind control. So hearing these bells would kind of scare the other slaves into doing the right thing. Not necessarily the right thing, but listening to the white man. Here over here, we have the iron mask, and it was only enough space for you to breathe, so they would often leave you in here for hours, days, and maybe even weeks until you died if you didn't comply with what the slave owner wanted you to do. So if you didn't listen, this was like a form of punishment, and if you didn't comply, you could possibly die. Here over here, this right here is the cotton that they be picking. As you can see, it's very spiky and it has a lot of thorns. And there were no gloves when they were picking them. So when they would pick the cotton, by the end of the day, they would have blood all over their hands, and often they would get infected. Oh, and I just want to say, here right here, you'll notice that there's stuff on his back. They're known as keloids. And they were a result of him being, they would jump overboard because they eventually they didn't want to come to the Americas because they were scared of what might happen to them when they got there. So often a lot of them would jump overboard, and in order to prevent that, the people on the ship would often put nets around the ship to prevent them from jumping over. I know there's not a lot of space, so just try to crowd together so there's enough space for everybody. Like he said, they would take a piece of metal and they would heat it up, and often on the metal would have like a symbol or like a family crest to let somebody know that you belong to this specific slave owner. That is very painful. They would leave it there until the marks did, and this right here, this is another form of punishment. It wasn't comfortable at all. They would often leave you in here for hours, days, maybe even weeks until you did what the slave owner told you to do. Follow me into the other end of the slave owner.
You can move through. You can move.
Try to move through. So a lot of devices used during the time of slavery was all about torture. So if you look right here, you see there's a paddle, and these paddles have holes for a reason, because when air circulates through an item at fast speeds, it will create more pain. This right here, we have a whip. And this right here, this is also a whip, but this has multiple strands to it. This right here would be one of the pieces of iron they would use to brown with. And if you look closely right there, you can see initials. And also, the initials would usually represent a specific family that the slave or slave owner owned. Right here, you have so what they used to do is so they used to stuff your body in a barrel, and they would have all the other slaves watch, and while the other slaves were watching, they would cut your head off. The whole purpose of that not only was to serve as your punishment, but it was all about mind control. So it would kind of scare the other slaves into doing what the slave owners wanted you to do. In the slave boats, there were different sections. We had the men's quarters, the boys' quarters, and the women's quarters. That white man right there, his name is Falcon Bridge, and he would Alexander Falcon Bridge, and he was known to be the worst of his crew members because at night he would sneak into the women's quarters and he would put stuff in their mouth, and at night he would rape them. Over here, if you look closely, you can see the conditions are not comfortable at all. They were often stacked on top of each other, so most likely, if one of them got sick, the rest would get sick, and if one of them died, it was also possible that the rest might also die. There was a lot of diseases and rat infestations going on, because they came from Europe, so they came from Europe to Africa to take the slaves. And during this time in Europe, there was a lot of disease going around, and there was a lot of rat infestation, and a lot of the disease and rat infestation was brought onto the boat, which caused a lot of sickness and death spreading around the slave ship.
Can we let this camera guy get up front a little bit? Go through Lorenzo so you get in front of him. Excuse me.
If you look through here,
I'm sorry,
there were some rebellious slaves. Most were successful. So as punishment, they would have some of the other slaves watching, and they would torture you in front of everybody else, just as like a way to scare the rest of the slaves. This right here is called libation and offering to ancestors. It's kind of like when you have a communion at a church. But this was like an African tradition, so the purpose of this tradition was to honor an ancestor or a person that you love to honor. So what you would do is you would pour water into the little cups, and you would recite the little phrase, I pour libation in the memory of, and then you'll say the name of an ancestor or a person you honor or love who you lost, and you would like to remember.
But I want y'all to all know this and never forget this. You come from great kings and queens. This is not the start of our history. This is just a part of our history, what we've been through. You hear what I'm saying? Yes. Say, I come from kings and queens. Let's march on.
Si mata